My grandfather, Moritz Morocco, Zichrono Livracha, was born in Lodz, Poland in 1919. Born and raised in an ultra-Orthodox Jewish home, he had 4 brothers and 2 sisters. He grew up in a wealthy family, his father being in the textile business. He also had a loving grandfather. He lived a great life as a child. 1932. Moritz had his bar mitzvah. His father, Michael Yitzchak, lived to see Moritz get called up to the Torah, but died 2 years later in January of 1934. Although without a father, Moritz moved on and continued to practice Judaism, a greatly important part of the Morocco family. Adolf Hitler, the animal that he is, was the head of the National German Socialist Workers' Party, also known as the Nazi Party. He and his dreaded Nazi followers sought to achieve 2 quote-unquote goals in life. The first goal, to gain power, more power, and even more power. In fact, he wanted total control of the entire continent. This goal, however, led to a much worse goal, the solution to the Jewish problem. In trying to create his vision of a perfect world, he declared that Aryans are a master race. The Nazis took action in 1938 with the publication of Der Giftpilz, or the poisonous mushroom. In his book, Ernst Heimer fulfilled Hitler's desire to create the other through the use of intense prejudice and cruel propaganda.
Schau, Franz, genau so wie es beiden Pilzen im Walde, so ist es beiden Menschen auf der Erde. Es gibt gute Pilze und es gibt gute Menschen. Es gibt giftige, also schlechte Pilze. Und es gibt schlechte Menschen. Und vor diesen schlechten Menschen muss man sich ebenso in Acht nehmen wie vor Giftpilzen. Verstehst du das? Ja, Mutter, das verstehe ich, sagt der Franz. Wenn man sich mit schlechten Menschen einlässt, so kann ein Unglück geben, wie wenn man einen Giftpilz isst. Man kann daran zugrunde gehen. Und weißt du auch, wer nun diese schlechten Menschen, die Giftpilze der Menschheit sind? Fragt die Mutter weiter. Franz wirft die Stolz in die Brust. Jawohl, Mutter, das weiß ich. Es sind die Juden. Unsere Lehrer hat das schon oft in der Schule gesagt.
The discrimination was just as bad. The Nuremberg Laws, a set of rules and boundaries that discriminate the Jews in the most ridiculous ways, was published in September of 1935. Europe began turning against the Jews, with people blindly following the beliefs of Hitler. For example, Jews were no longer allowed to marry Aryans, who were supposedly a master race in Hitler's Reich. Furthermore, the Nuremberg laws state, although the Nazis had clearly done enough, even too much, to the Jews, they felt that words were not powerful enough. They felt the need to take action, being the savage animals that they were. The situation only grew worse. On November 9th of 1938, the Nazis raided the streets of Germany, feeding innocent Jewish people in the streets, breaking into Jewish stores, starting fires, and arresting people on the spot. 91 Jewish people were killed. 30,000 were sent to concentration camps. Fortunately, Moritz did not experience the night of broken glass. but he was soon to face challenges beyond imagination. This situation probably doesn't mean much. What's the worst that can happen? This can't get much worse, right? Were the thoughts of many Jewish people. Unfortunately, their thoughts misled them. The Nazis would soon take their insanity to a new level. The German invasion of Poland, starting on September 1st, 1939, was an absolute nightmare for many Jews in Poland. Worst of all for my family, Moritz and his relatives lived in Lodz, Poland, and experienced the invasion firsthand. The German occupation of Lodz took place on September 8, 1939. Lodz had a Jewish population of 230,000. The Nazis began persecuting Jews in the city, and by November 7, 1939, the Nazis abducted the city into the Third Reich, renaming it Litzmannstadt. The Germans were now faced with the question of what to do with the Jews. Ghettoization was the next step in the search for a solution to the quote-unquote Jewish problem. A ghetto was a small, cramped area in which Jews were placed in order to separate them from the rest of German society. And this is exactly what was established. On December 10, 1939, Ubelhor wrote a secret memorandum, or letter to help the memory, regarding the building of a ghetto in Lodz. Unfortunately, by February 8, 1940, the decree to build the Lodz ghetto was announced, and that is exactly where Moritz and his relatives were placed. As was the case in most ghettos, the Jews in the Lodz ghetto, including my grandfather and his family, experienced horrible living conditions. Jews were packed into small rooms with only the belongings that they had with them. Food eventually grew scarce, hygiene became an issue, and disease began to spread. To add insult to injury, 20,000 more Jews were eventually transported to the Lodz ghetto. Surprisingly, some people found positive in being locked up. For example, some people thought that they would no longer be beaten and harmed by outside people, by non-Jews. Unfortunately, the ghetto was not built for that reason. The last thing the Nazis wanted was a safe place for the Jews. Rather, the Nazis put the Jews in the ghetto to keep them together as the Nazis compiled plans to solve the quote-unquote Jewish problem. It is heartbreaking for me to think that my own grandfather, Zichrono Livracha, went through these horrors. Although the Nazis' treatment of the Jews was terrible, the worst was yet to come.